Okay, that should do it. Okay, you guys should be able to hear me now. Let me know if we're good. You have to head out, Robert. Bye, Robert. Yeah, we'll definitely do a Minesweeper. I made my own. Just have to break it down into a way I can teach it, and then we'll start working on that. Should be fun. Okay, so awesome, you can hear me. So let's just go over what we have. We have our array projectiles, which is going to store all of our projectiles. And then we created this function right here that represents a projectile, and we can pass in an x, a y, so its position, s, which is its speed, which we define down here. So this dot x equals the x that we pass in, this dot y equals the y that we pass in, and our speed of the projectile equals the s that we pass in when we call it. Alright, now we're just using red ellipse. You guys might have a different color one. But I'm using a red ellipse to represent this projectile. And then the way it moves is by going up the y-axis. So we subtract whatever speed that we pass in from its y position. Then, so this text right here is just displaying how many objects we have inside our projectile array. And then we have a for loop right here that is going through our entire array, so the length of our array, and showing everything in the array and moving everything in the array. And then we say if our projectile is beyond this boundary right here, so once it's off the screen, then we splice it. We take it out of our array from the ith position, so it should so it'll take out any of the projectiles in our array that are beyond this point. And then right here we have our keys down, spacebar, and whenever we hit spacebar, then we push a new projectile at 250, 500, so that's why it's appearing right here, with a speed of 5. And then we created this timer that's constantly subtracting to kind of give us some time in between each time we push a new projectile into our array. And if you want to change that speed, you can change this number right here to, I think before we had it 160th, now it's 130. I think that's a good speed, but you could do like 1/10. So now I think we should make this a little more playable and more applicable to our games. Is there anyone joining us for the first time in this class that does not have this code? And also, does everyone have this timer stuff going on yet? If you don't have the timer yet, I can walk you guys through that. And also, is everyone's code working? That's important before we move on. Jan, you're good? Awesome. Okay. I am going to move on to the next step, but don't be afraid to ask any questions or let me know if something in your code isn't working, and also definitely let me know if I'm going too fast, because I think last time I went a little too fast and then we had a lot of issues at the end that we had to sort out, which is no big deal, but I think we could have finished the whole project if I didn't rush through some of those other parts. So let's start with where we spawn our projectiles, because right now they're just spawning in this one spot at 250, 500. So there's kind of two approaches that people do in Code Naturally games, and one is they have a character that moves with WASD or mouse keys. Well, and there's the other approach where people just use their mouse X and their mouse Y, and their character will just follow that. So mouse X, mouse Y is super simple. All we have to do is change this to mouse X, mouse Y, and so right here I'm just in our if key is down 32, in this if statement I go to this line projectiles.push, and then I changed these two numbers, I think it was 500, 250, to mouse X comma mouse Y. And now our projectiles should spawn wherever our mouse is when we hit spacebar. And so this would be a good option if you had a character that was just following your mouse X, mouse Y. So let's say we had a character with a you can just use a rectangle that was at mouse X, mouse Y, so let's just say this was our character following our mouse. Now our projectiles spawn where our character is. And obviously if I was doing a better character I would do rec mode center. But I think most people are probably going to use a character that moves around with arrow keys or WASD, so I think we should try coding that. So let's make a new variable. We'll just call it player X and one for player Y. And also I should mention that we could make a function for our player, and actually in most cases you would want to, but because I think the goal of this project is to give you guys a tool to apply to games you already have, I'm going to show you how to do it where you're using variables in the global scope and all your characters' functionalities within function draw. And then yeah, so this will be pretty quick, and then we'll get into classes, and from that point on we're only going to use functions in classes. No more like we want our function draw clean. So yeah, so let's do this. Let's do it this way. Let's start our character at 250 on the x-axis and 450, and then let's make like a ground or something. Yeah, okay. So 0, 450, okay, actually that's a bad color. I'm just trying to make something that looks kind of like a ground, so to where we could place our character. Okay. Looks a little odd, but let's make our character now. So I'm just gonna use a rectangle for my character. So I'll set its x and y position to our new variables that we made, and I'll just make them like 25 by 50 or something like that. Oh, now let's change the y to make the top 350. 400. Okay, and then we're gonna do our keys down stuff to make it so our character can go left and right, and I think everyone should know how to do that. What's the key code for? This is okay, I'm gonna use A and D to move my character. So A 65 and D 68. Cool. So 65. And again, guys, let me know if I'm going too fast, or if you need me to go over anything that I brushed over too quickly. So 65 will make our player X go to the left, so it's minus equals 5. And we can copy this, paste it, change this to 68, and change this to plus. And now our character goes left and right. Also, I'm going to fill our character, make them red. Okay, cool. And our projectile is still spawning at our mouse X, mouse Y. So let's change that to instead spawn at our player X and player Y. And again, that's on this line, projectiles.push new projectile player X, comma player Y, comma 5, which is our speed. So I guess this would be a good, your speed right here that you pass in would be good to have that if maybe you had a game where you could get power-ups or something, where maybe your projectiles could go faster, or maybe you had an arrow for one type of projectile and a fireball for another, and maybe the arrow goes more at an arc at a slower speed than the fireball might. You can have any type of you can pass anything, and I mean this is what these functions are good for, is you can kind of design a projectile to however you like, and I think what we have right here is a super simplified version, because it just goes straight. But so I think we'll also, so now our projectile is spawning at our player, wherever our player is. But I guess if we were doing a side scroller, we would want to change the X. So in this dot move, you could change this dot Y to this dot X and add. So now our projectile is going to the right. And I think last time Noah asked if you could make it so projectiles would interact with other characters, like an enemy character in your game. So I think let's do that real quickly before we move on. But okay, you have an error. So if you're not sure what the error is, you can submit it by hitting exit, top left, and then click these three dots right here, and then share it, and then you can copy this link right here and submit it on the link in the description for this live stream. But yeah, so I think let's make it so our projectile interacts with maybe an enemy character, and then we can move on to classes. And also one more thing. Alright, so our next step, but first we'll fix that error. Our next step is going to be our splice in here. Because right now it's only splicing if the bullet or the projectile is along the y-axis up here. But now since our projectile is moving to the right, we want it to splice when it's off the grid over here to our right. And while we try and sort that error, rec mode center is just here. I can type it in the chat. And you want to put that in function setup up there. Yeah, let's use this time to make sure everyone's caught up. So we have we just added our keys down to move left and right. We also added a character, a visual for a ground, and now our projectiles are spawning at our player X and our player Y. And next up we have to work with the splice, and then also our move right here, we changed X to Y and we added, so subtracted. You're not seeing a link. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, there's the link. Yeah, so just submit your submit that link that you just got from your project there, and then I can take a look at it. And if you're okay with it, I can put it on the screen and we can work out the bugs together. So let me know when you submit that. Jan and Noah, are you guys doing okay? Okay, great. Alright. I'm gonna bring yours on the screen and see if we can fix it. Alright. Okay, so we have our array. Here's the function. Looks good. Timer play X. Did it stop working when you changed this? Okay. Let's make sure all our... Yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm gonna copy this into a new sketch. Key, oh, okay. On line 35, your key is down. See, we have capital K. Gotta change those to lowercase k. And great, that's yours is working once you get that. Yeah, I should do it. Okay. And then once you get that changed, we also change this right here. This dot move equals, we're making it so our projectile moves along the x-axis now. Because I think that would be more common in a, since we kind of shifted this over to a side scroller rather than a third person asteroid blaster type game. Then let me know when you got that fixed so we can move on. Okay, so I'm tempted to make another function for an enemy, but I think that might take that might take too long, and also the point of this is for you guys to implement this into games you might already have. So let's just do var, we're going to do it all in draw, var enemy x equals, we want it off screen to start, so we'll do 750, var enemy y equals 400, just like our player, and then so let's just say our enemy will just move enemy x minus equals 5. And that should, we should be seeing something. Oh, I have to make the actual enemy. So we'll make them blue. Do a rect. Or let's do a, yeah, we'll do a rectangle. Enemy X, sorry, enemy Y, make them the same size as our player. Cool. And then we'll just do an if statement that resets our enemy. If enemy X is less than -50, we'll respawn him. Enemy X equals 750. Neither spawning. Okay, and we're just going to take this as far as if our projectile hits the enemy, then the enemy will just respawn him. And I think then we should move on to classes. And we can, we'll make sure everyone's code is working and answer some questions if anyone has any. So now we can say if, oh wait, so sorry, we want to do this in our for loop, because we're going to be tracking the X and the Y position of our projectile. So let's say, so let's spawn our projectile a little bit lower. So we'll say projectiles.push new projectile player X player Y plus 25. So again, in that where we're pushing a new projectile, let's do player Y plus 25. And then now it's spawning a little lower. And then, yeah, so back in this for loop, which is from here to the end of our splicing if statement, we'll do right above splice if projectiles I dot, I guess we could just use dist right here. If dist projectiles I dot, and this is gonna be a long one, so let me know if you guys get any errors. Dot projectiles I dot Y comma enemy X comma enemy Y is less than 25. We'll start with. Then we'll just reset our enemy X equal to 750. And obviously we would want to do more stuff in an actual game, like maybe increase points. Oh, okay, that's not working. I'm going to try 50. Oh. Okay. Okay, that works. But every time it spawns a new one, it the same projectile just goes through them all. Which maybe that's what you want, but I think we should respawn our projectiles or splice our projectile as well. So we can say projectile I or projectiles dot splice I1. And also let's change this down here. If projectiles I dot X is greater than 750, then we'll splice it. Okay, let's try that. Cannot read property X of undefined. Okay. So yeah, we have to think of a different way to do that. So the projectile's eyes undefined. Are you getting the same error as me right now? I'm also getting errors. So that's because we're spliced. It hits the enemy and splices, but then it checks if it exists right here, and it does not, because we just spliced it. So let's just we can just add it into this conditional. We can make both conditionals do the same thing. Projectiles, or we'll just copy this right here and do an or. Okay, now try. Oh wait, I gotta comment this out now. Okay, that's working now. Maybe we can adjust that number a bit. It's not. It's disappearing a little late. 30. There we go. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that, because I want to get into classes, and ideally I want to finish that project today, because Robert and some other people had some interest in making Minesweeper, so I could start that next class if we finish all of this today. Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at your guys' code again. Jan, if you want to submit yours too. Let me see if I can get yours, Jan. Okay. Looks like you set up some boundaries in yours. Okay, if... Oh, got it. So... yeah, right. Now you have your... You have this if statement down here, but we want it in our for loop, so which is from here to here. We have our opening, our for loop is here, and we have an opening curly bracket and closing right here. So we want that distance to be checked within that, within that scope. Let me know if you get that fixed. Also, I think we're pretty much wrapped up with this project. So if you guys have any questions, probably look at code about functions or even your own code, now's a good time to ask. You just sent it in? Okay, I'll take a look. Okay, okay, let's just, I'm gonna make new projects, and we're just gonna work through these together. So, I'll grab yours, Trevin. Okay. Okay, you guys moving? Nice. Great. So, in the for loop, great, we'll say if the distance between projectiles I, so pros I, you had the y correct, but we need x too. So dot x, comma pros I, dot y, comma enemy x, comma enemy y, close parenthesis here, less than 50, then we splice, and then you're going to get this error here. So what you have to do now is take this right here. We actually don't even need this if statement, so you can just comment that out, because currently in our game the projectiles will never, oh, dot move. Okay, let's also move your move up here. Okay, there you go. Now it's working. So I'll go over what I did again. I moved your move method up to here, right below show, and then in your distance formula I added pros I dot x, and then closed the parenthesis right here and did less than 50. And then I commented out this if statement down here. Okay. Let me know if that worked for you. And now let me grab yours, Yonk. Okay. Okay, so, ooh, I like the background you got going, the alpha. So, well, first of all, in your move, we're changing this dot y to this dot x, and we want to add instead of subtract. So now it should go to the right. That red looks really cool. I like it. And so now we got to change distance. Uncomment this. Looks like you have it. So, oh, that's all you have to do. Perfect. This is working just fine. Alright. Let me know if you guys need me to go over those changes again. But for now, I'm actually going to make a new project, which we could call rain with classes. Your projectile's not spawning. Okay, I'll look again. Oh, check it out. You got an extra curly bracket, just delete it. And then put it down here. See, now it's matched up with draw. There you go. Now your game should be working. Just one more time, Trevin. You had an extra curly bracket right here. I deleted it and put it down here. Okay. Alright guys, so we are creating a new project now. I'm just going to put a black background in. Also, no, if you want to do that background trick, you can just do background. So let's say my background was pink. You got it? Awesome. So then we can just add an extra number here. I forget what let's try 25. And then if I had something moving, I'll just make an ellipse move. So now when it moves, you'll see that little trail. So all you have to do is add that extra parameter on a background. Okay. Now we can do that with this rain. I think that could look cool. So yeah, and again we're gonna make rain here. So let's all create a background that you think would look good with rain. I'm gonna make mine nighttime. So I'll do black background. Okay, and but before, yeah. So is everyone ready to move on? Does everyone have a new project? just type ready in the chat if you guys have a new project open. Yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to explain what we're going to do. So we're going to try to simulate rain. I'm just going to use an emoji to represent a single raindrop, the tear emoji, and I'll paste that in the chat as well if you guys want to use the tear emoji. And yeah, but if you want to make a more customizable raindrop of your own using an ellipse or whatever shape you see fit, that's completely fine. But so the only difference would be I would be using text in my project and you would be using an ellipse function of some sort, or a shape function. Okay, awesome. Looks like you guys are ready. And we're going to use the same kind of process that we did with those projectiles. We're going to have an array that stores objects. We're going to show those objects with and make things happen to those objects using functions that we create within our raindrop class. So it's going to feel a lot like that project that we just did, but we're going to use a class instead. And I guess the difference is with our function, when we created a function, we had these functions within that function, and that's kind of similar with classes. We have our class has our data members. So for example, when we defined our x and our y and our speed in that function, those were our data members. And then we also have our member functions. So those are the functions. So anytime our class does something, that's going to be our function that we put within our class. So if we were to break down a raindrop, we would have in this simple raindrop, we would have an x position, a y position, and a speed again. Or sorry, not a speed. They're all going to be falling at the same rate, but a size, I would say, because you want some raindrops to appear like they're in the background and some in the foreground. So if they're in the foreground, they're going to be bigger. If they're in the background, they're going to be smaller. And then our raindrop also is going to fall. So those were our properties. Those are our data members. An x position, a y position, and a size. And then our member functions are going to be fall, because our raindrop needs to fall down, and then show, just like what we did with the projectiles. And the show is going to be where we put what a single raindrop would look like. And yeah, that's really it. It's the same as projectiles, but we're going to use classes instead. So it's just going to be a little bit different syntax, but same kind of concept. So let's start by making an array. I'm going to call mine var drops equals empty array. So I'm going to do that above function setup. I suggest you guys do the same. Put your code in the same locations that I do, because then if you have an error, it'll be easier for me to find if we use the same positioning. So yeah, we have that. We just created an empty array called drops, and now let's create a class. And like we did with our class, our function projectile, we just have function, then the name equals function. But so here we just say class, and I'm going to call it raindrop. Open curly brackets. And so the first thing we always have in a class is a constructor. And this is where we put our data members, or where we initialize our data members. So if you guys decide to pursue programming or computer science in the future, you'll find probably if you start coding outside of Codemaster, you'll probably find yourself using more than one file to code. So you won't just have one location where you'll be typing code. You'll have multiple files, and well, like in C, for example, you would have a header file, and that's where you would put your class prototype, basically. But since we're doing everything in one file here, we're typing it all in this section. We're gonna have our constructor initialize our data right all in the same file right here. That might have been a little bit confusing. But all I was trying to say was that eventually all this code might be spread out across multiple files. So we're going to say this dot x equals x, this dot y equals y, and this dot size equals s. And if you remember from our function, we passed these values x, y, s. So we'll do x, comma y, comma s. So all we're saying right here is, which is super similar to the function, is when we call raindrop, we need to pass to our constructor right here, we need to pass an x, a y, and an s. So we'll say raindrop, give it a position, an x position, a y position, and a size. And then it'll go through our constructor and set x equal to this dot x, y equal to this dot y, and s equal to this dot size. And what I mean by this is our raindrop. So this dot x is the variable used for this raindrop, basically. Okay. And now let's make we have all our data members, so x, y, size, that's our data members. And now we're going to make a function for our class raindrop. So we'll do fall. And also take note that I'm still in the scope of our class raindrop. And guys, don't be afraid to stop me if you are having any errors or syntax issues. It's better we fix them now before we start trying to actually spawn raindrops. Okay, and so in fall we're going to do just like when we moved our projectile. This is the same as our move function. We're just calling it fall. This dot y plus equals, I'm going to do 10 for my speed. So all that's going to do is when we have a raindrop, it's going to just go down our x-axis, or sorry, go down our y-axis. And now let's do show. So what we're going to use to represent a raindrop. And let's see if I can copy this emoji. Oops. So I'm going to do text. Remember, this is where you could use an ellipse if you'd like. Great, my emoji copy. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys if you want to use the teardrop as well. So all you have to do is copy paste that into your text. And remember, you need these quotes. So text, quote, my emoji. And then the position is going to be this dot x, which we defined up here in our constructor, and this dot y. And then if we want to change the size of our text, we have to do it above text, right? So I'm going to make text size this dot size. I'm not just going to give it a random number because I want to make it so I can define each individual droplet size. So we initialize this dot size in our constructor, and then we can use it in our text size right here. And so now we have a raindrop. This is going to be a basic raindrop. And so if we display that, let's just create a variable so we can see our one droplet at a time. So we'll say var drop one equals new, just like what we did in with our functions, equals new raindrop. So we're calling our class, so that means we have to pass in these parameters that we defined in our constructor. And I'm just gonna put my raindrop at 350, comma 350 comma started at -50, so it can come in from off the screen, and I'm going to give it a size of 10. And then if we went into function draw, we could say drop 1 dot show and drop 1 dot fall. And that's my raindrop right there. I'm gonna make it super slow so you guys can see that I did in fact spawn a drop, a raindrop. That did not work. Oh, there it was. Okay, still going pretty fast. Doesn't like 1. Oh, sorry. This is the size. Speed is here, so I'll change it to 1. Okay, yeah. So there's my raindrop, falling very slowly. Okay, so I'm gonna pause right here, and I want to make sure everyone is where I am right now, with no errors. Also, Mackenzie and I made a video called Introduction to Classes, and there's part 1 and part 2. Or maybe there's just, I think part 1 and part 2, yeah. And we did the same exact project, explained in a little bit more detail, I would say. So, if you guys want to revisit that, it's only like maybe 8 minutes total of part 1 and part 2. But yeah, if you guys want to go over what we did today again, you can watch those YouTube videos. And I think that would definitely be a good idea. If we're going to do Minesweeper next class, it'd definitely be a good idea to review everything that we're going over. But actually in my Minesweeper I used so with my Minesweeper I did I'm using functions, but same concept, and we just did functions with our projectile, so shouldn't be a big deal. But here's what I have so far. Okay, back to our project. Just let me know in the chat if you guys are ready to move on, either ready or if you have a bug, let me know. Why does it only happen once when it should happen 60 times a second? The drop. So the drop, in a sense you are correct, it is happening 60 times a second, but we're only showing it 60 times a second. We only created 1 drop in function setup. See, that's why we said drop 1. We haven't done anything with this array yet. So drop 1, we just create 1 raindrop at 350, -50, and a size of 10. And then in function draw, we're showing it at 60 times a second. So really our screen's flashing, but it's just so fast. It's going at 60 times a second that our eyes can't actually see those flashes. Or I guess process those flashes. And the same thing's happening with the fall. Every time it's updating its new position, because fall is adding 1. But I'm not gonna change this. I'm gonna change this back to 10. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. So now we know that our raindrop is working. So let's try doing the push stuff. And Actually, before we push, I want to splice. And it's going to give us some errors because we're not going to splice anything. But, we don't want to overload our computer. We don't want to crash our browser by just spawning a bunch of raindrops. So let's have our splice functionality working first before we push any raindrops. So we're just going to say, we're going to do a for loop. So for var I equals 0. You thought it would keep on appearing at the top and bottom. Well, we didn't write any code that resets it to the top, because our fall is just updating, it's just adding to its Y position. So it's only ever going to go down. And so, and you are right, if we were going to try to make rain with without an array or without any type of data structure or classes, then we would try to respawn our raindrop at the top. But then we would have to make a ton of variables to represent a bunch of rain. If we do it with this approach, then we can have as many rain droplets as we want. Make it look more realistic and save us some time with coding. So var I equals 0, I is less than drops dot length. And when I'm saying drops.length, I'm referencing this array that we made up here. And drops.length. Then we're going to do I++. And then in this for loop, we want to say, this is where we want to, so we want to show all of our drops. So we'll say drops I dot show, just like we did with this drops 1 show and fall. Drops I dot fall, and then now we're going to do the splice. So if drops, this is just like the projectiles, if drops dot y is greater than 600, drops dot splice I, comma 1. So, and we haven't actually pushed anything into our array yet, so our array is empty. None of this is doing anything yet, but now we should be ready to start pushing droplets in. So also I'm going to delete this drops. I'm going to delete this, the drops 1 stuff. I'm going to delete the pushing of a new drop. Or so actually let's just change this to drops equals new raindrop. So wait, drops dot push, and it'll put this all in parentheses. And then I'm also going to delete this variable drops 1 because we don't need it. Cool. So now we had 1 element in our array, but then we spliced it when it came down here. But so yeah, now let's start pushing droplets into our array. So we'll do drops dot push, just like we did up here, and set up new raindrop. But we wanted to randomize it, so we're gonna say random the length, however wide our grid is. So I'm gonna do 700. Comma, and then our y is always going to be -50, comma, and let's give it a random size, random 1, comma 5, and you guys can, that's a little small, I'm going to do 2, comma, no, 5's good, 5's good. Okay, I mean, so now we have some rain. I'm also going to display our drops dot length. drops dot length. Yeah, I could slow down, Jan. Let me know if there's any specific point. I'm just gonna pause right here before we go any further, but I'm gonna display the length of our drops first. So thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna put it at 350. Oh, 350. 300. Size. 50. Okay, so here's the length of our array, and it maxes out at 66. So we're staying pretty safe. Yeah, that's definitely a good pausing point to fix some bugs in anyone's code. But here, yeah, I'm gonna let's break down every line again. So we have an array called drops. Starts out as an empty array, and then in function setup we push a raindrop, so an object, a raindrop, with position 350, -50 for the y, and a size of 10. And then we have our class raindrop here with the constructor, where we pass an x position, a y position, and a size, which we initialize here. This dot x equals x, this dot y equals y, and this dot size equals s. And then we created this fall function that we can use on raindrop, where it increases the position of our y. So this dot y plus equals 10. So that's why these raindrops are moving down, because we're adding to the y position. And then we have another function within raindrops, so we're still in the same scope of class raindrop, where we have our text size, which we pass in up here, and then we have our actual text, which has the raindrop emoji and the position of this dot x and this dot y. And so that concludes our class raindrop. And then we have function draw down here. So we just have a background, and then these three lines right here I'm just displaying. You guys don't have to do that if you don't want, but I'm just displaying the size of our array. So how many raindrops actually exist on this canvas right now. So it maxes out at 66 before the splicing becomes even with the pushing of raindrops. So then right here in function draw we created this drops.push where we put in a new raindrop. And the reason why we don't have to keep calling drops.push is because what Noah pointed out earlier, we're in function draw, so it's going at 60 times a second or something like that, something close to that. So we're actually calling push 60 times a second, which is probably why we're maxing out around 66. Yeah, if we wanted to create more raindrops, we could simply copy this, paste it, and now we have 132. I'm also going to get rid of this because it's messing with the text size of our raindrops. Okay, there we go. So now we have our for loop. And the scope ends right here, right before the scope of function draw ends, where we say loop for the length of our drops array, and then drops I show, drops I fall. So we call those two functions that we created in class raindrop on each element of our array and drops. and then we'll say if drops I dot y. So if its y position is greater than 600, then we splice it. We just take it out of our array, and that's all we have right now. And this could actually be a cool project to add some alpha to, so we can just say comma 25 maybe. Oh, that looks cool, but it doesn't really look like rain. What would 50 be? Now it's kind of like a meteor shower. Maybe that's what we were meant to make. Maybe that's the project. If we changed, I think it's always gonna be blue because we're using an emoji. But we could try changing the stroke to red. Let's try that. I think that's doing something. It looks kind of red now. Oh, the outline of the raindrops red now. That's kind of cool. But I guess if we want it to all be red, we could change the text to yeah, don't be afraid to submit your projects too. But yeah, we could change that text to an ellipse. This dot sorry, x, and this dot y, and then this dot size. That looks pretty cool. This could be like a cool menu screen for a game, maybe. I don't know, or a background for a game. I could put a whole background on top of this. Could look cool. But I'm gonna go back to the raindrops for now. I guess that looks a little bit better with 100 alpha. Did you submit yours, Jan? I could take a look. Okay, I got it. Okay, so property y of undefined on line 34 drops. So remember, we want it in the scope of our. We want this in the scope of our for loop because we're calling I, and I only exists within the scope of this for loop. So we need to delete this curly bracket here and put it down here. Okay, we got one drop. Why is that? Drop, stop, push, new raindrop. random, -50, random 25. Okay. Oh, sorry, right here, drop 1 should be drop I, same thing. Line 31, drops, sorry. So, yeah, those are 2 fixes. Everything's in here. And there you go, now you have rain. That should fix it. So again, you had a curly bracket here, so I just deleted it and put it down here. So now this if statement is within the scope of your for loop. And then I changed this drop 1 and drop 1 to drops I and drops I. If you want more raindrops, all I did to mine was I just copy pasted that. Now you have some more raindrops. Okay. Pause mine. Did that work for you, Jan? And we're coming close to 4 here, so we basically finished this project. I think we can start working on Minesweeper next time. Maybe we'll do a quick review of functions and classes. Maybe just go over this project one more time. I like to always do that. Just go through line by line, see the data flow of my projects. So, for example, down here I say drops.push. So push pushes something into this array here. So we're pushing a new raindrop. And then we can look at our raindrop up here and see why we put these parameters, and it's because we have an x, a y, and a size. And then here we say show fall, and that leads us to up here. So yeah, just kind of work through your project just to make sure that you're understanding why we were able to make this rain, or rather than just writing what I'm typing. So yeah, and now would definitely be a good time to ask any questions, fix any errors in code, or if you have any feedback for me or suggestions for either this project or any project ideas you might have. If you guys want to submit your projects, I can take a look at them. Also, just go over again, if you guys want that kind of meteor shower effect, you can change the alpha of your background. With just that extra parameter here. And then if you want to change this from the emoji to an ellipse, that all happens in show right here. And you can change the stroke or the fill, make different colors. I'll leave all that customization up to you guys. The first, yeah, I'd be happy to look at that. Just, yeah, if you just submit it, I can take a look. I don't personally have the URL for the arcade, but I can try to get that for you guys, because I know that was a popular request the last class as well. Mackenzie, if you're still in here, do you happen to have the link? Alright guys. Okay, you submitted it. I'll take a look, and then we are at 4 o'clock, so after this I'm gonna have to head out. Oh, nice. Got a menu screen and everything. Oh, this is great. So, what's the bug that you have? Nice, you added a lot to this. Looks great. Oh, you added your own enemy function. Awesome. The oh, that looks like I'm going to. The squares aren't supposed to spawn that fast. Something to do with the difficult. Okay. Is the timer what you're using to spawn them? Where do you create? Okay, you have a timer here, and then you also have this dot draw equals function, but then you also have function draw here. This could be a problem aside from, because you're defining a new function draw here, but you already have a function draw here. But so if you ever call it like here, enemies dot draw, I'm surprised that there's not an obvious error from that. But okay, let's just try to get this spawning. That's quite the variable name. Okay, timer plus equals, and then if timer is less than or equal to 60, push new enemy. So your timer is incrementing here, no matter what. These if statements, so easy is always going to be this. Let's try making this I don't think that your push has anything to do with the timers. We might actually want it to be faster. You're always going to be pushing enemies at 60 frames per second, because the timer is always going to be going, so that means this will always be pushing new enemies. So another approach you can do instead of using a timer, and don't worry, I'm not editing your code here. I just copied your code into a project of my own. So what we can say is, or I'll leave it uncommented. We can say if timer mod, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with mod, but basically it's just going to give you the remainder of something. So if timer mod, let's do 2 is equal to 0, then we can push enemies. And then you can actually just get rid of all this timer stuff and all these extra if statements. Or, well, no, keep these. But in here, instead of doing timer plus 1, you can just change. You can get rid of the timer completely and just use this if statement here with the modulus. Just yeah, I'm not really sure how the rest of the game works. I'm gonna just try it. I'm gonna put this outside of that scope. And let's do frame. Hold on, let me look at the syntax. Pivot frame count, I think. Okay, if frame count mod 2 equals 0. Okay, let's do mod 10. There we go, that's a lot less. Alright, is that what, did that help at all? So we're using this mod here. They spawn at a lot slower rate. But so you just adjust this number. We can do 20. And now it's a lot slower. Alright. Maybe you can mess around with that for now. But so this statement here is going to make it so you can they'll spawn at a lot slower rate, and then you can get rid of all this timer stuff, because I think the timer just made it a little more complex than it had to be. And then in here, the difficulty should change the amount. Yeah, so we can just get rid of all these timers. And then put these if statements in. Say if it's easy, do 20. If it's medium, we'll change it to 10. If it's hard, we'll change it to 5. And if it's extreme, we'll change it to 2. And then I think then you want to start your game mode at, or difficulty at easy. Yeah, I can post that in chat. So we're at easy, now we're at hard, now we're at extreme. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to work with the like tracking of right here, this tracking. But that's the easy stuff. And yeah, I can post that modulus stuff. I'll post that here. But I actually do have to end this stream now, so hopefully that gave you some help. But I think you can figure it out from there. Looks like you put a lot of work into this. I like it. Alright, but I will see everyone next class. Thanks for watching.